Hello everybody and welcome to our panel I Can Too, The Wisdom of Child Parts. Right off the bat, I do have a few content warnings to give you all. There will likely be references to past trauma as well as references to present day trauma, but we are going to keep things brief and not go into too much depth. We will also be talking about child alters engaging in adult activities like smoking or drinking alcohol. And there will also be references to re-traumatization as well as inadequate therapy. So my name is Heather. I am a newly fused part in our system. I use she, they pronouns, and I'm 24 years old, which is the same as our body. Collectively, we go by Brigade of Beans, but most people just call us Beans. We are a psychology student, and we have been diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder since 2020. Collectively, we typically use he, they pronouns, and we consider ourselves collectively transmasculine, but evidently not all of us identify that way. We are white. We have short black and blue split dye hair that is currently up in a half ponytail. I have blue winged eyeliner on. I have a light blue mesh top and then a blue and white corset top. I am using a fidget that is a round circle of resin with a bunch of beads in it that are all brown and teddy bear themed. And I'm sitting in front of what is meant to be a bookcase, but is filled with a bunch of different trinkets, including small squishmallows, some Lego, some arts and craft that we've done, and there are some books towards the bottom. With the preliminaries out of the way, I want to go right back to the very basics first and define what a child part is. Different systems define what a child part is differently. Some will say that it is any part in your system that is 10 and younger, some will say 13 and younger, some say 18 and younger. But those definitions also hinge on these parts having a defined age that makes sense to an external person. Some alters won't have any sense of age, but might still be very childlike. You can have alters who present internally as a young child, but have a much higher capacity. On a similar note, you can have alters who present to be older internally, but actually have a much younger state of being. So the basics aren't even really that basic. They are very complex. And essentially it is up to each individual system, each individual plural person to decide what makes a part a child part within their system. And then on top of that, decide how they want to treat and interact with their child parts. We have found, especially in traumagenic spaces, that there is an assumption that all child parts are inherently vulnerable and inherently need protection and should not be having to deal with adult problems. And on the surface, this makes a lot of sense, especially when you are looking at it through traumagenic systems and all of these parts that often in childhood, often to cope with really, really extreme things that no child should be having to deal with. However, this assumption that all child parts should be treated like children takes away the autonomy of the individual parts of your individual system. On the flip side, assuming that child parts have the capacity of adult parts should behave like adult parts and should never behave like children, also has the same potential for harm and the same potential for stripping those parts of autonomy. The most important thing that you can do when it comes to your system is base the way that you treat your system, you treat your alters, you treat your other selves, how it works best for you. You can, of course, take inspiration from online, take inspiration from your therapist, take inspiration from memoirs, take inspiration from research. But at the end of the day, your system is unique to you, is unique to your circumstances. And what works for some people won't work for others. So even within this panel where I am talking about how to embrace child alters, none of this might resonate. You might go, that doesn't work for me. And that is completely fair, and you are well within your right to disregard everything that I say. But I am also hoping that within the time frame that I have, that I can be a little bit comprehensive, that I can touch on many different things and help illuminate the diversity and the power that child parts can have. But before you can start to work on how best to treat your child parts, you need to welcome them into your life. You need to get to know them. How you do this will differ greatly. Some child parts might be rearing and ready to meet the system. They are already drawing artworks, they are already writing messages, they are already coming out and playing and interacting with other people. Other child parts might be a lot more reserved, more cautious, more shy, hiding, watching, trying to work out if things are safe before they approach. And other child parts might be so disconnected that they're not even aware that there is the option for them to come out. Meeting your child parts will likely be a continuous process. It depends on the size of your system, obviously, but for us, we have a very large system. It numbers probably in the hundreds, if not the thousands. And there is a constant trickle in of new alters who have been in the background for a long time, and a lot of these are child parts. So we are constantly playing the game of catch up, constantly playing the game of welcome, constantly playing the game of this is our life, how would you like to be a part of it? And how we do that differs on which child part is coming forward, what they carry, what they need, what makes them feel safe, what makes them feel scared. One thing that can be helpful in welcoming child parts forward is having items and activities specific for them. As I've already mentioned, on my shelf in this room, I have squishmallows. I also have a lot of other teddies, some of which I think might be in the corner of the camera, a lot of which are off camera, some of which stay on our bed, that we have had some of them since we were a young child, others we've collected as we've grown. Some have been specific parts in our system, child or otherwise, going, I want this specific teddy, and then we get that to them so there is something of theirs, so they feel like they have a place, a belonging, an item that gives them comfort. A lot of our child parts really love to play Minecraft, and really love to watch other people play Minecraft, so we have a list of Minecraft YouTubers they can watch, and we have Minecraft worlds that they can play within. We also have a lot of child parts who really, really enjoy art, so making sure that we have paint, we have pens, we have crayons, we have pencils, we have paper, so that they can create. And it's often through these artistic expressions that we actually get to meet and get to know these parts. It's not so much a direct conversation between us, it's not them writing back and forth, but it's us seeing what they've drawn, what they've chosen to share, what they want the world to know about them through a very creative and expressive process. Other things that can be welcoming for child parts is having clothes that they feel comfortable in, or having people around that they feel comfortable with. These might be your partner, your family, your friends, your therapist, your counselor, anyone who they can feel safe enough with to introduce themselves to them, to introduce themselves to the system through them. Having a person that they know is safe and comfortable and will treat them in the way that they want to be treated. Finding safe people and learning how to trust people is its own whole thing in and of itself, and I don't really have time to get into it in this panel, but I do want to acknowledge that that is not always easy to find, but if you have found it, it can be very, very beneficial. The other thing that's helped our child parts a lot is our cats. We collectively have always really, really loved animals, and our two cats are very, very sweet, especially with our child parts, and so they feel safe to come out, to hug them, to pick them up, to play with them, to brush them, or to top up their food bowl, to give them treats. And I cannot overstate just how important our cats have been in facilitating making our home welcoming to our child parts. So if you have pets yourself, or some way to connect with animals, that might also be something that is very beneficial. The next step to welcoming child parts into your life is to listen to them. And this circles back to how to treat your child parts. They might not have the exact words to say, I want you to treat me like a child, or I want you to assume that I have competence. But communication isn't just words. It is behaviors, it is thoughts, it is feelings. When you share a brain with other folks, there is a level of awareness that you can potentially have that two people who don't share a body and a brain can't have. Yes, that barrier between you can feel just as wide, and for some people there is no extra innate sense of knowing, but in some cases there can be. If you have parts who are reacting in fear every time they are fronting, who are scared whenever they are fronting, then it's finding things that will help bring them comfort. And not just comforts that remind them of trauma, that feel normal, because normalcy can be comforting, but if your childhood was traumatic, if your teen years were traumatic, if stuff was stressful, then that normalcy might actually be high stress, if not trauma. And so whilst there is comfort in that normalcy, it actually isn't comforting and safe from a overall perspective. Other parts right out the gate might be telling you a million things a minute, and you are getting information, and you don't know how to filter all that. You don't know how to sort through all that. You don't know how to process all that. And this is where things like journaling can really help. I don't just mean writing things down, but video journaling in particular has been helpful for us, as well as the creation of art for a more journaling intention rather than just a artistic expression, because that can allow parts who struggle with speech, who might not be able to speak yet, or who struggle with writing and spelling, to be able to communicate things that they wouldn't be able to communicate if they're just writing out messages. And it's important that you respect what these child parts are saying. It can feel very overwhelming if you're not able to handle it yourself. You might be able to resource with other alters in your system. You might be able to get help from external people. You might be able to say, I want to help you, I want to listen. I don't know how to do that yet. I will listen when I can. This is not something I'm silencing forever. Please write it in this space, please draw it in this space, please leave your videos here, and I will watch them when I have the skills to do so. But I will make sure you're heard. I just don't want to scare you with my own reaction. Something along those lines. That message, whether said, whether written, whether felt, can help parts feel like they're not being silenced, they're not being pushed away fully. They can still feel like that, but it doesn't feel as bad as when someone goes, no, I can't listen, I won't look. Once you've established this listening, if you've not yet been able to ascertain how your child parts want to be treated, if you don't have a standard for your system already in place, you can ask them directly. You can say, would you like me to treat you like a child? Would you like me to treat you like an adult? Those concepts might not make sense though, so you can ask differently. It's like, would you like me to buy you teddies? Would you like to make art? Would you like to play Snap with our friend? You can offer activities that are more geared towards children. Would you like to watch princess movies? Would you like to watch animal documentaries? But you can also ask child parts, hey, I notice that you're around a lot when we're at university. Is it because you want to be here, or is it because something is negatively triggering you forward? And sometimes it might be that they have a really intense interest in attending university, and it's working out how to do that safely, how to have them there, and that might be they have the capacity to be there fully by themselves and not in supervision. It might be that you ask them to take a step back and be co-conscious while somebody else does university. It might be that they help take notes in class, but they don't do the socialization. It is having a conversation. These conversations can be revisited because alters aren't stagnant, to make sure that not only are you respecting the child part's wishes, but also not making them stressed out. You also have to be aware that some child parts will insist that they have the capacity for something that they actually don't. I'm going to use a very benign example, but this applies to more traumatic, more stressful environments as well. Say you have a child part who insists that they are really, really good at cooking. They have been cooking since the body was 6 years old. They're still 6, but they've been cooking that entire time. And they're like, yes, I can do this. I know how to cook. I know how to use a knife. I know how to use the stove. But actually, when they're cooking, things are getting burnt. Stuff isn't balanced nutritionally. Things aren't chopped finely. Sometimes they're not using a chopping board. There's been accidents. So whilst they insist that they have the capacity to do this job, do this task that they've done for so long, there's evidence that they're struggling with it. Maybe it's also making them really stressed. Maybe it's making them really upset. Maybe they feel like they have to do this because they have to keep themselves safe, because nobody else is going to take care of them. And if they don't cook, nobody's going to cook and they're going to go hungry. And it might be the case that they are the best alter in the system equipped to cook even in that situation, even when it's stressing them out, even when they're not very good with it. And if that's the case, you might have to let them keep doing it, or you might have to explore other options. Not that many of them are very affordable, but exploring other options to make sure that that need that they're trying to fill is being filled without them having to be so stressed out and panicky, or just thinking that they're doing really well when they're really not, because they are a child. But you also might have someone in your system who is able to cook now, who has the skills, who has the capacity, who has the knowledge needed to be able to cook meals. And you can try and explain to this child part, through whichever medium works best for you, that actually there is somebody else here who can cook. And maybe it's a negotiation of they cook together, if co-consciousness is something that you have available to you. Maybe it's a softer thing of, hey, would you be willing to try and let this part cook one meal and see how that goes, and then we can explore further from there. It's allowing that curiosity for things to change, for things to adapt, and to allow other alters to step in and help them if they need that help. And not all of them might want that help to start with, and sometimes it comes down to making the collective decision of choosing to help them anyway, because it's negatively affecting your system or them not to do so. And other times if they don't want your help and things aren't going too poorly, maybe in this example the 6-year-old actually does know how to cook really well, and you just let them keep doing it because they're good at that job and they enjoy that job. And again, so individual, so unique, and the different approaches to it will be really different, but I hope that gives you some ideas. The other thing that's really helpful when it comes to helping your child parts, listening to your child parts, is accepting them. On the very first basis, you have to accept that they exist. And depending where you are in your system journey, where you are as an individual, that might be easy, that might be really, really difficult. The next thing you need to accept is what they bring with them. Again, this might be really easy, this might be really, really difficult. And it is a constant process. And it won't just be I accept you now. Like, it takes a lot of hard work. I'm not trying to say that it's easy. But when you accept your child parts, listening to them becomes easier. But in order to accept them, you need to be willing to hear them out. So all these steps are kind of interconnected. They're not even really steps, really. They're just different points to consider. It's also imperative to accept that some child parts are very, very wise. Within normally non-plural dynamics, people talk about their parts of self. They're like, I have my child part and my present day part and my higher self, and I listen to the wisdom of my higher self and I protect my child part. And when you try to slap that logic on a plural system where the alters are diverse, they're independent, they're elaborated, they're so unique and tangibly themselves, that just it just doesn't work. Okay, sometimes it works, sometimes it matches up with your experience, but oftentimes it's not that simple. And you can have child parts, some who might be really, really young, be incredibly wise. They might be alters like gatekeepers or information holders who know a lot, who have access to a lot of the system. They might be the alters who are building the inner world, who are designing the inner world, who are flooding it with their creativity. They might be the alters who are the best at picking up when someone is unsafe and someone is not unsafe, who have the best gut instinct of, this is what a dangerous person behaves like. It's also important to accept that not all child parts off the bat will behave in a way that is palatable to you. This might mean that you have child parts who behave very, very much like a child, and that is uncomfortable because other people are perceiving you in a way that you're not comfortable being perceived. Maybe it makes you feel vulnerable, maybe it makes you feel embarrassed, all of those things. And those are hard emotions to work through. You are entitled to your emotions. I'm not telling you how you should or shouldn't feel. But even when child parts make you feel embarrassed, even when they make you feel vulnerable, they still deserve to be accepted and listened to and welcomed. On the other hand, you might have child parts who make you very uncomfortable because they like watching Game of Thrones, or they like drinking, or they smoke cigarettes. And kids aren't supposed to do that when they're an actual literal child. And so accepting that you have a child part behaving in these ways can be very hard. It can be a very gut reaction to just prevent them from doing that. At the same time, it can be a gut reaction to go, this doesn't make sense, I don't like it, this can't be real. You might have a gut reaction to go, oh, well, they're doing these things, so it must automatically be fine. I'll just accept them exactly as they are and not consider how those behaviors are impacting them. In some cases, child parts will smoke and have no negative emotional impact. Child parts might watch Game of Thrones and have no negative emotional impact. But that isn't the case for all systems. And if these child parts are doing these things, engaging in these behaviors, and there is distress being caused, like in my earlier example with the cooking, negotiate with them, compromising with them, finding out why they're doing these things, and helping redirect them and finding a new purpose. Not just stripping that away from them and leaving them with nothing, but finding replacement things that they also enjoy, that also make them feel strong, that also make them feel like they are important. I wanted to talk a little bit about child alters in our system who break those boundaries of vulnerable and helpless. First, I want to talk about Adam. Adam is currently 7 as I'm filming this, but he will turn 8 in May, and he is an alter who fused from several other trauma holders and child parts. He started out as a 5-year-old and was very scared, very unsure of the world, but also had things that he really, really enjoyed. He was and is a frequent fronter, and he spent a lot of time engaging in his interests, building safe relationships with our friends, and processing that the world around him now is something that he has control over. He's been aging in a very linear fashion of 1 year, 1 year, 1 year, but his capacity has increased significantly faster than that. Despite him still only being 7, we would trust him to manage a complete day in our life. He is capable of cooking for himself. He is capable with navigating complex social situations. He is capable of masking. He is probably capable of taking adequate notes in a university lecture or a tutorial. He is capable of taking care of our pets, and whilst he might struggle with some hygiene-related things, it's no more than the rest of us struggle with as an autistic system. He is a child in many ways. He engages in childlike interests. He behaves and speaks like a child. However, he is incredibly capable and incredibly smart. He also has a decent awareness of a lot of our front-facing system and would be able to communicate with other parts and facilitate switches if there was a situation that he wasn't able to handle. He, in many ways, would be able to run our life better than a lot of adult parts in our system, because being an adult alter does not automatically indicate capacity and does not automatically indicate a lack of vulnerability. Many of our adult alters are heavily traumatized, and whilst they're adults, their reactions and responses come from a very traumatized place, and they would not be able to respond to a situation in a way that is safe for us. Meanwhile, Adam probably would, despite being significantly younger. Another example is Emily. Emily is also 8 years old, and she is the alter in our system who struggles the least with executive functioning issues. She is the alter who is best able to manage daily chores, who is best able to do the dishes and deal with all the sensory hell that involves. She is very, very capable. However, she doesn't get to front much. And she's also a child in many other ways. She loves her princess movies. She loves listening to Disney music. She loves Pink and dancing around and singing, and appears very childlike, but is able to do tasks that normally would be relegated to an adult. And she enjoys doing them. That's the important distinction. She doesn't feel like she has to do them. She's not doing them out of obligation or out of stress or out of fear. She's doing them because she wants to. And finally, there's another alter who I'm going to leave unnamed because they are very young. Their whole function in the system is to make an alarm sound go off when we are in danger. And they are significantly better at assessing when a situation is safe versus unsafe than anybody else in our system, including our primary protector cryptic. So yes, they are very young. They don't speak often. They are vulnerable in many ways, but they are also one of the strongest forces in our system to keeping ourselves safe. So just because an alter is vulnerable doesn't mean they also aren't an integral part of the system makeup, especially for systems like ourselves who formed due to trauma. We allow them to continue that job because it's what they do. There's no replacement that they are interested in. It's what makes them feel like they have a sense of purpose, and it's what helps make them feel safe. But whilst we haven't taken that job away from them, we have added onto their safety net. We have built up protections around them so that when they do sense danger, they aren't having to manage it alone, and there are other alters internally to support them. And that support doesn't always work perfectly. Dissociative barriers, especially when we're stressed, can go way back up again, but they have more support than they used to, which is overall beneficial for them. Another area where child parts can be silenced or not listened to or spoken over is within the therapy space. We are very lucky that this is not something that we have experienced. We have a very good therapist who responds well to whoever shows up in session with them. However, we have heard horror stories of other systems experiences where child parts were not allowed to be in the therapy room, where they were told, have an adult deal with this. Can an adult part talk to me about this? How can an adult part handle this? Whilst in some systems, it can be helpful to have an adult part help out in therapy, to help be a spokesperson, to help communicate words that are too hard for a child to say or to write down. There is an important balance that needs to be found between speaking with and supporting and speaking over. And if a therapist is insisting that they have to speak to an adult, that child parts are not welcome, that in our opinion, major red flag. If you've come from a childhood of unsafety and you're trying to find safety, a big element of what safety is finding safe interpersonal connections, working out what those feel like. And if you are learning to form a good therapeutic relationship, that is a safe connection. However, how can that safe connection be fostered if every time a part of you is trying to interact, especially a child part, they are told, no, you are not welcome here. They need to be allowed in the therapy space. They need to be allowed their voice. For some systems, they might also need to be protected by the system and have other people handle the big things that they are struggling with. And in other cases, they need to be taught the skills to be able to continue to handle it by themselves, or just find safety in the interpersonal relationship, in the therapeutic alliance, to realize that they can trust other alters in their system to fulfill the things that they are panicking about, they are worried about, that are scary for them. And that is not going to happen if the therapeutic relationship is continuously being ruptured by the therapist saying, no, I want to talk to somebody else. I understand it can be confronting interacting with child parts, especially traumatized ones, especially ones that are scared of you. It can be hard, but also it's your job as a therapist to help be the rock in that space, to help show that it is safe enough to explore these things now. And when you listen to these child parts and hear what they have to say, so many of them have important things about the collective history, the collective past, and also so many important insights, so many creative endeavors, so many deep philosophical concepts that are so important to be heard and to be taken on board. The other area of life where child parts are often silenced or hidden from is the internet. And this, for us, is trickier than the therapeutic space, because the internet is not a safe space. There is not that trust developing that you have in a therapeutic relationship, because anyone can stumble across your content. And there are some really horrible people out there who like to bully, harass, and take advantage of people online, especially those that they think are strange. So it is important to maintain safety around you and your system when posting content online. For some systems, this means never posting their child parts. Some systems, this means never referencing their child parts. For some systems, this means using pseudonyms or talking about them or talking around experiences they've had. For ourselves, it means evaluating it on a part-to-part basis. Alters like Adam have been and will continue to be in our content because they are capable of understanding the risks associated with it. Other things that we do to keep ourselves safe is filter our comments. If we are talking about a vulnerable thing, we post it to specific platforms where we know we have lower engagement or where we know we can control who is seeing that video, so who will be commenting on it is also controlled. Other alters in our system we talk around, like how I mentioned the child part in our system who detects danger. And other parts you will never hear us talk about online because they are too vulnerable, they are too scared, or they don't want to be spoken about online, and they have expressed that to us. But the disadvantage of never allowing child parts online ever is it can make the experience of being a child part really, really isolating. Already DID can be isolating, but especially for child parts in our system, it can feel very, very lonely to never see other people like themselves. Children stuck in adult bodies. children who sometimes are capable of doing adult things but still want to be kids, and also child parts who are just kids. So for them, it's been so healing to get to see other child parts talking about their experiences, being themselves, and involved in other systems' content in a way that is safe for that system. The other thing that can be lost when you don't allow your child parts to be online is that they lose their voice within your collective story. If you are making content about yourselves, about your life, about your experiences, and they are not allowed a place in that, it can feel isolating within the system. They're not even allowed to be one with the system. And that's really sad for a lot of our child parts. They want to have a voice. They've been silenced, they've been hurt, they've been scared. And now they are ready to be seen and heard. And how you approach sharing your story is another safety matter that within itself is a whole panel. But for us, we don't really do live streams. We pre-record everything so that we can have time to edit, cut out things that are too vulnerable, have multiple authors watch it through and go, yes, this is safe for us to post. And so that applies to our content from our child parts, especially so, because we double check that they are saying things that aren't going to put us or themselves in danger. And it is then a collective responsibility from all of us, child parts and adult parts and teens and the parts without ages, to maintain our internet safety together and allow ourselves to be present and involved in our life and involved in our content in a way that feels nice and feels safe and feels like we belong. I wanted to talk about an experience that I have had, about suddenly being a child part. So, one of the alters who fused into me is Helena. And Helena was a fusion of several other parts, and when she first fused, she thought herself to be an adult. So she was engaging with the world as an adult. One of her favorite comfort shows was Outlander. She was helping go to work. She had, to be fair, a kind of scary role in our system, but also a very present role in our system. And part of that presence was her being an adult. Part of Helena's therapy journey was finding out who she was within the system in a less scary way. And part of that therapeutic process was her realizing that she was a child around the ages of 8 to 9. Internally, her appearance shifted. She was younger. Her behavior kind of shifted as she embraced her authentic self. She was no longer putting on this show of being big and scary. She didn't have to anymore. She could just be herself. And she got to be a child for a bit. Despite being a child, one of the few things that brought her comfort still was Outlander, which for those that don't know, is very much not a child-appropriate show or book series. But it was also one of the few things that helped her feel like she had a place in this life, helped her feel regulated, and helped prevent her from falling back on behaviors that were harmful, stressful, scary to the system. We as a system, and her as an individual, had to try and collectively work out whether her engaging with Outlander, engaging with very heavy materials, would potentially be re-traumatizing for her. And in the end of the day, whatever we decided as a system, she didn't want to listen to. She wanted to keep watching. And it didn't re-traumatize her. And I don't know how much of that was because she'd already watched it when she thought she was older. How much of it was, yes, she was 8 or 9, but she was also a part of an adult brain and an adult body, could cognitively understand these things in a way that a natural child wouldn't. Or how much part of it was choosing to engage in something and having choice. And so instead of being re-traumatizing, it was empowering to her. And after a couple of years, she aged up to 15. And then over the next few months, she then aligned with our body's age. And by the time she fused, she was 24 like the body. And I genuinely think that part of what allowed my healing journey to go so quickly, to changing from scared, lashing out, doing anything I could to protect myself, to feeling safe, feeling comfortable, feeling a part of the system, feeling protective, feeling a sense of belonging, was being allowed to choose the things that worked for me, having a choice, having autonomy. Because part of what made me so scared and powerless in the first place was not having autonomy. So being gifted that, gifted the ability to engage in a show that was important to me, to read a book that meant a lot to me, helped me realized that I was being listened to, I was being heard, and I deserved a place in the system however I chose to show up, even if it was in unpalatable ways. Every system will be different. What works for us will not work for other people. Our system is a traumagenic system. A lot of our kids are heavily traumatized. They sort of dream trauma in childhood. So things that help them won't necessarily apply to child parts and systems who haven't gone through childhood trauma. But I hope that you can take away the fact that child parts are not just helpless and vulnerable. They deserve to be listened to, they deserve to be heard, they deserve to have their choices respected, and they deserve a place in your life how and when they want to, in a way that works for all of you collectively. They deserve space in a therapy environment. They deserve space in the content that you make. They deserve space in the art that you have. They deserve space in your interpersonal relationships. Finding out how to do that safely can be hard. Finding out how to balance between what a child part wants versus what they need can be hard. But you are not going to get anywhere if you shut them down, if you shut them out, and you refuse to listen to them. Hello everybody, my name is Lavender. I am 11 years old and I'm filming this on a different day. So the background's the same, but I'm now in a black hoodie. And I'm also joined by Brandy, one of our 2 cats, who is a calico. So she's mostly white, but she's got some spots of ginger and black on her. I've been elected as a spokesperson for the kids in our system to add our own part of this video, because it's not really fair to have a video about us and not also include us. Being a kid in an adult body can be really hard because you're not seen as yourself ever. And people look at your body and expect you to act like an adult. And they can be very uncomfortable when you don't act like an adult, when you behave in a way that is normal for you because you're just a kid still. It can also be fun to be a kid in an adult body because you can do things that actual kids can't do. For example, Molly and Adam, who are 5 and 7, really enjoy going on roller coasters, and they can go on bigger roller coasters because we're taller now than they could if they were actually 5 and 7. So there are some really fun parts about being a kid in an adult body. But the part that is the worst is when we're not listened to, when the system silences us because we are too much or too embarrassing, or what we remember is too scary, or we act in a way that isn't palatable. So they push us away and they silence us and they don't listen to the important things that we have to share. Some of that sharing is sharing our memories, is sharing what happened to us. Sometimes with words, sometimes with art, sometimes by showing other alters memories. And sometimes that sharing is sharing knowledge that we have, things that we know are important, like telling the system when somebody is safe or when they're not safe. This is my other cat, S'more. He's probably not going to stay on my lap, but he is a black cat. Sometimes the things we have to share are creative insights. Maybe you're stuck trying to work out a problem and you don't know what the solution is. And maybe the kids in your system have a really creative idea that solves the problem that you haven't considered. And if you don't listen to them, you'll never find that solution. Some of us know a lot about the system and know a lot about the inner world and know a lot about other alters. And you have to listen to us to learn about those things. We can also help with relationships. I know that it can be scary having child parts interact with friends, but a lot of us really want friends and we want safe people we can talk to, and we want to meet up with people and we want to go bowling with them or go painting with them or do fun activities with them that are appropriate for kids. And if you don't let us do that, then it's really lonely and then we get more upset. And you have to listen to us so that you know what our needs are, so that our needs are met. And when our needs are met, the whole system does better. Some of us have superpowers inside, and we can make force fields, or we can help people change what they look like, or we can shape the inner world and make things, or get rid of things that are scary. We can help the system make an inner world that works for them, or protect the system inside and do things that other alters can't do. And you have to listen to us for us to be able to help you. And you have to listen to us to be able to help us. Some kids don't have creative solutions. Some kids don't have inner wisdom. They're scared and they're small and they need your help. And you have to listen to them. Listen to their words. Listen to their actions. Listen to their feelings. And help them. Help all of us. Help yourself. And then when we're all working together, things are a lot easier. You also have to be patient with us. Some of us might have things that we want to share, but we're not ready yet. You don't seem safe yet. We don't feel safe yet. So helping us feel safe, showing that you can be a safe person, is really important for us to be able to tell you things, to help give you our insight, to help the system do better. And the little things go a long way too. Acknowledging when you hear us, thanking us for what we have to say, checking in with us, telling us that you have things handled, asking if we can go to a safe place inside, if something's going to be scary or too much for us or not appropriate for us to help with, buying us things that help us feel safe, letting us have clothing and teddies and toys and stuff that is for us and that we know is for us, so that we know you want us in your life too. Letting us tell our stories when it's safe to do so. Letting us tell you our stories. Letting us tell the people who are safe our stories. Letting us do the things that make us feel like we matter. And my final thing to say is that it's not appropriate to tell someone else how to treat their child parts, especially if it's someone you don't know well. It's not your place to say they can't handle that. You shouldn't let them be online. You shouldn't let them talk to other people. You shouldn't let them go to university. You shouldn't let them help cook. That's not okay. You're not in their system. You're not living their life. And you don't know just how much their child parts might be capable of. Yes, it's true that some of us are like literal external children and deserve to be treated as such and deserve to have that safety and deserve to have that care and to have all the responsibilities lifted from our shoulders. But others of us don't need that and don't want it, and it actually makes it worse to take all of that away. We are allowed to choose if we want to help. We are allowed to choose if we want responsibility. And we are allowed to choose if we want to do things like drink or smoke or see friends. What might be re-traumatizing for some child parts isn't re-traumatizing for all of us. And it's up to each individual system to know themselves and to support themselves. And it is not okay to make blanket statements about what child parts can and cannot do. Thank you all for listening. If you are a system and if you have child parts, make sure that you're checking in with them. Make sure that you're listening to them. And make sure that they know they belong in your life too.